Inside the shadow reality of the dark chosen one, even demons stay away. What does it feel like to cross a threshold that even the most fearless refuse to approach? What happens when you step into a reality where silence isn't empty but alive, breathing in a language older than sound? That's the world I want to drag you into. The shadow reality of the dark chosen one. A realm so dense with power that even demons circle its perimeter and whisper, "Not here." Because this isn't just darkness, it's sovereignty so absolute, fear itself keeps its distance. Before we descend, let me tell you why you're even hearing these words. If this video found you, it's not an accident. Something in you, something you've spent years trying to cage, has started snarling louder than your excuses. You've felt it in the dissonance of your daily life, in the ache that comes when you're smiling in rooms that feel like coffins. You've tasted it in the static of conversations that die before they begin, in the rage that bubbles when people preach light as if light alone can liberate you. It can't, because you weren't forged for halos, you were carved for hurricanes.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Here's the raw truth. The shadow reality isn't a place you visit. It's a dimension that awakens inside you when you stop flinching at your own ferocity. Most will never touch it because they confuse darkness with damnation. They think shadow means evil because they were raised on fairy tales where villains wear black and heroes glow like neon virtue signs. But those stories were engineered to domesticate you, to make you amputate half your power and call it holiness. The truth? Darkness isn't the absence of light, it's the womb of everything luminous. Light can only exist because shadow held it first. And when you understand that, when you stop running from the soil of your own shadow, the gate creaks open. But listen, crossing that gate is not romantic. It's not incense and affirmations. It's bone-deep rupture. Because the shadow reality doesn't just invite you in, it demands your illusions as payment. You will walk in naked, stripped of every identity that once made you feel safe. Titles? Ashes. Roles? Ashes. The polished persona you perform for a world addicted to pretty masks? Ashes. And that burning will blister. It will claw screams from your throat. Because the mind will fight for the very chains you swore you hated. Why? Because freedom is more terrifying than slavery when you've tasted neither. And then, when the ash settles and you think you're hollow, something stirs, a hum in the marrow, a voltage in your veins that feels like both venom and nectar. That's the first taste of the shadow reality. It doesn't roar, it whispers. It whispers truths so savage they feel like blasphemy in a world fattened on soft lies. Your fear was never your enemy, it was your compass. Your anger wasn't poison, it was propulsion. Your hunger wasn't sin, it was scripture. Every doctrine that told you to amputate these instincts lied to you. They wanted you tame because tame souls make perfect prisoners. Here, in this reality, those instincts don't just live, they lead. They become black flames curling in your core, guiding you through corridors no map can chart. And the deeper you go, the more the noise of the old world fades. The judgment, the applause, the performative virtue signaling of the light ones chanting love while bleeding fear. Here you don't need to chant. You emanate. You don't hustle for power, you hum with it, because when you integrate your shadow instead of crucifying it, you become ungovernable. And that, my friend, is the most dangerous frequency on earth. But let me warn you, this path isn't crowded. Not because it's hidden, but because it's hostile to fragility. Every step you take into this dimension is a step away from the narcotic of normality. You will lose people who once swore they loved you, because your evolution indicts their stagnation. You will outgrow rooms that once crowned you king, because you've stopped kneeling to applause. You will taste loneliness so sharp it feels like teeth in your throat. And yet, underneath the ache, something feral will grin, because you'll know this loneliness is holy. It's the silence before Genesis. It's the void where gods are born. So why do demons stay away from this realm? Because even they know chaos when they see it. Not the chaos that destroys without design, but the chaos that architects universes. Demons feed on fear, and in this dimension, fear doesn't live, it kneels. It becomes your warhorse, your compass, your co-creator. When you master that, what can hunt you? What can haunt you when you befriended the beasts that used to stalk your sleep? That's why they stay away, because they know what most humans don't. A dark chosen one who owns their shadow isn't prey, they're predator. And predators don't just survive, they script the laws prey die obeying. So here's the blade point question. Are you willing to slit the throat of every illusion you've ever suckled just to taste a power so raw it will make your name sound like thunder in the marrow of time? Or will you scroll away back to the lullabies of light and call this too much because your spine isn't ready for infinity? Decide. Because the next part isn't for spectators, it's for initiates. For those who don't just want to flirt with darkness, but to wed it, to braid it into their bones, until even reality bends in recognition. In the next chapter, I'll drag you deeper, not into metaphor, but mechanics. I'll peel the black skin off this dimension and show you what prowls beneath. The 7 silent laws that govern the shadow reality and why they make you untouchable to both demons and divinity. Are you ready to learn why power doesn't shine, it devours? Then come with me into the heart of the storm. The 7 laws of the shadow reality, codes that crown you in a realm where fear dies. Step closer, but not too close unless your marrow can handle this fire. These aren't guidelines, these aren't cute spiritual quotes you can slap on an Instagram post and collect hearts for. These are blood laws, ancient, feral, unbreakable, etched not in ink but in the marrow of reality itself. And if you violate them, they won't punish you, they'll erase you. Because the shadow reality doesn't tolerate weakness. It doesn't care for intentions. It bows only to execution. So listen like your bones are doors and every word is a storm pounding to break them open. Law 1. Embrace paradox or perish. Light ones cling to binaries because binaries make them feel safe, good and evil, holy and profane, pure and tainted. In the shadow reality, those walls are dust. Here, love has teeth, mercy bleeds into wrath, creation hums inside destruction. And if that makes you squirm, you're not ready, because to wield power here, you must cradle duality like a serpent in your hands, without flinching when it coils tighter. You must whisper to your fear until it turns into a compass. You must drink your rage until it burns into fuel. This is integration, not amputation. Anything less and the shadow will spit you out. Law 2. Obey silence before sound. The louder the world gets, the quieter you must become. Why? Because words leak voltage. Declarations thrown too soon rot destiny before it ripens. In this realm, silence isn't absence, it's architecture. Every still moment you endure is a forge hammering intent into steel. When you speak, it must strike like a guillotine, not a flutter of syllables begging for attention. Light ones spill secrets like seeds on barren soil. We plant nothing until the season is submission itself. Do you understand that discipline? Most don't. That's why they wander in circles while you carve dominion in shadows. Law 3. Alchemize or annihilate. Pain will stalk you in this reality, not as punishment, but as raw material. Here's the difference. Prey breaks under it. Predators break it down. Every betrayal becomes blueprint. Every loss mutates into leverage. Every scar hardens into scripture you can wield like a blade. You don't numb it. You don't chant it away. You metabolize it into momentum. And the day you learn to feast on agony like it's ambrosia, that's the day the shadow bows at your feet and whispers, "Now you are sovereign." Law 4. Sacrifice comfort like a lamb. In the old world, comfort is currency. Here, it's cancer. Stability will seduce you, stroke your ego, whisper lullabies of safety in a voice sweeter than sin. Kill it. Kill it before it cages you, because nothing rots a dark chosen one faster than routine, padded with pillows. You must slit the throat of every comfort that makes you soft, every habit that rusts your hunger, every lull that lures you back into mediocrity. If that sounds harsh, good. Harshness is holy here. Law 5. Weaponize invisibility. Attention is a drug, and the light ones are addicts, worshipping algorithms like idols. But power in this realm multiplies in silence. Announce nothing, build in the black, move like smoke, strike like lightning, because when they can't predict you, they can't prevent you. The wolf that survives winter isn't the loudest, it's the ghost that glides through slow, unseen, until it's too late for the herd to scatter. Law 6. Command presence without permission. Light ones beg to be liked, palatable, adored. You don't beg, you emanate. Presence here isn't a performance, it's a gravitational law. You walk in and air rearranges. Why? Because your frequency is voltage compressed, so tight it bends outcomes without words. That's not arrogance, that's physics. When you embody the shadow fully, reality stops asking what you want, it starts asking where to kneel. Law 7. Destroy to create. This one will break the brittle. In the shadow reality, destruction isn't sin, it's sacrament. You torch what's toxic before it metastasizes. You gut dead systems before they rot your marrow. You burn the bridges not because you hate who's on the other side, but because you refuse to breathe air perfumed with stagnation. Collapse isn't chaos, it's choreography for those savage enough to wield it. That's why this law terrifies light ones. They want rebirth without burial, dawn without death. But you'll turn ruin into renaissance and make the rubble your cathedral. Breathe. Let these 7 sink like black pearls into your blood. Because they are not concepts, they are codes. Codes that crown you in a realm where even fear dies screaming, "But hear me." The shadow will test you. It will peel your skin to see if you bleed integrity. It will tempt you with vanity, bait you with validation, seduce you with shortcuts. Fail, and it will feast on your bones. Pass, and you will become something feral, something holy, something that makes both angels and demons hesitate. But don't think for a second this path ends in applause. It ends in isolation so pure it tastes like eternity on your tongue. In the next part, I'll take you into that silence, the black cathedral where dark chosen ones kneel before nothing and rise as everything, the void where you either fracture or fuse with power so absolute it erases your name. Are you ready to slit the throat of every illusion and drink from the chalice of sovereignty, even if it burns like molten glass? And follow me, the black cathedral, where dark chosen ones die and resurrect as law. You've memorized the codes. You've swallowed the laws like molten obsidian, burning through the soft tissue of everything you thought you were. But understanding is nothing without immersion. Now, we step into the place words cannot fully map, the Black Cathedral. Not a building, not a structure of stone, but a frequency so dense it folds light into silence. You don't walk here. You are dragged by the marrow of your own becoming. This is where the dark chosen one stops negotiating with fate and starts dictating it. Inside this cathedral, there are no altars, because what would you worship when the only God here is the law you're becoming? There are no idols, no hymns, no choirs crooning comfort. There is only echo of your own breath slamming back at you like a war drum, echo of every illusion you've ever suckled now shrieking as it burns. This is where your ego claws at your ribs like a feral thing, begging for one last gasp of relevance. It hisses, "Don't kill me. We built everything together. I made you." And maybe it's right. Maybe ego did get you here, but here's the cruel geometry of ascension. The tool that carved the ladder cannot climb it. If you clutch it now, you both fall. So you take the blade and you slit its throat on the obsidian altar of nothingness. You kill yourself to crown yourself, and that killing isn't poetic. It feels like asphyxiation. It feels like the marrow is leaking from your bones in black rivers, like your lungs are swallowing fire, like every nerve in your body is vibrating in a language that isn't human. This is ego death stripped of Instagram gloss. No pastel sunsets, no hashtags about spiritual vibes. This is crucifixion in slow motion. It's your name melting like wax under the heat of something vaster than thought, and you will scream, not out loud because sound has no passport here, but inside the caverns of your being. You will scream until the scream dissolves, and then, in the vacuum where even the scream cannot live, something happens. Stillness. But not the fragile stillness of meditation apps. This is stillness that hums like a predator, vibrating with voltage so feral it feels like standing inside a black sun. And then, the whisper, "You are not." Not as insult, but initiation. You are not your name, not your story, not your wounds you've worn like trophies, not even your triumphs that glowed like coronas on your crown. You are not, and in the marrow-scorching terror of that revelation, something detonates, the sweetest violence. The realization that, if you are nothing, you can now become everything. And that's when the Black Cathedral shifts. Its walls breathe. The void stops feeling like a tomb and starts feeling like a forge. You are no longer bleeding. You are liquefying, melting into molten code. Every fragment of you that clung to form becomes vapor, and in that vapor a law begins to hum. Not a law you obey, a law you are. This is the transmutation most seekers never taste, because they stop at the door, seduced by pretty lights. They wanted halos, you demanded hurricanes. They wanted enlightenment, you demanded omnipotence, even if it meant annihilation first. And now, annihilation has kissed you into immortality. Not the immortality of flesh, but the immortality of influence. So savage, it warps timelines. Here, there is no crown waiting on a cushion. There is no applause, no divine hand descending to pin a badge on your chest. The cathedral does not congratulate, it consecrates silently. Because now, when you leave, you do not leave as a pilgrim, you leave as an axis. You walk out and gravity bends. Reality rearranges itself. Not because you bark commands, but because your very breath scripts geometry. This is why demons stay away. They can't haunt what has no hollow. They can't tempt what has slit the throat of want. They kneel at the edges of your frequency like wolves watching fire, because you've become what they crave but cannot touch, a law clothed in flesh. And yet, before you roar into the night like a god with a grin, understand this: the cathedral brands you, but it doesn't babysit you. Power, this feral, is a double-edged galaxy. One slip, one flicker of ego resurrecting, one moment where hunger metastasizes into vanity, and the same current that crowned you will crucify you. The Black Cathedral gives you sovereignty, but it also gives you responsibility, so ruthless it feels like a shackle, because from now on every thought you think births worlds, every silence you hold tilts tectonics, and if that weight makes your spine ache, good, it should, because this isn't light work, this is black architecture. In the final part, I'll drag you into the aftermath, the unholy aftermath, where dark chosen ones walk among mortals while humming eternity under their breath, where you learn how to wield this power without drowning in it, where you finally understand why the shadow reality isn't a destination, it's a dominion you carry like an empire in your blood. Are you ready to see what it feels like to rule without ruling? To move like a storm disguised as skin? Then follow me into the last chamber, the aftermath of ascension, how dark chosen ones rewrite reality without speaking a word. You've crossed the Black Cathedral. You slit the throat of self. You liquefied into nothingness and resurrected as law. And now, here you stand, not as who you were, not even as who you imagined you'd become, but as something for which language was never built. This is the aftermath, the hush after the hurricane, the silence that thrums with so much voltage it feels like holding a thunderstorm in your lungs. You thought power would feel like applause, like the world screaming your name. It doesn't. It feels like inevitability. Now listen to me. When you carry this frequency, you do not walk, you orbit. You move through spaces, and they rearrange themselves without permission because reality recognizes you as an architect. Every room you enter becomes a chessboard tilted toward your will, and yet you do not will. That's the paradox most can't comprehend. Light ones hustle to manifest. They script affirmations until their tongues taste like rust. You emanate. You don't manifest outcomes. You bend the axis on which outcomes spin. You've become what they've been begging to attract. And that's why this aftermath feels alien, because while they're still praying, you've become the prayer incarnate. But here's the savage truth. This dominion doesn't roar, it whispers. It whispers responsibility so ruthless it makes your spine hum with gravity. Why? Because every thought you breathe now is a detonator. Every silence you hold is a decree. This isn't romantic. This isn't soft. This is architecture, and architecture is merciless. Lay one brick wrong, one act rooted in ego, one hunger you feed because it feels good, and the cathedral collapses inward, crushing you under the rubble of your own resurrection. And it won't be loud, it'll be quiet, a slow corrosion until one day you look in the mirror and realize the law dissolved and left you hollow. That's why most never survive the aftermath. They mistake omnipotence for immunity. You're not immune, you're infinite, but infinity carries claws. So how do you move now? Like a storm that knows it can flood cities but chooses which desert to rain on. You don't waste power proving it exists, you let them underestimate you, because invisibility is your sharpest fang. You withdraw from arenas built for applause because you know applause is arsenic for gods. You operate in silence, not because you fear exposure, but because you understand the first law of shadows. Power diluted by display rots. So you build in black, you strike without warning, you wield presence like a scalpel, cutting illusions with precision instead of bludgeoning the blind with spectacle. And what about connection? Here's the brutal beauty. Most people will never see you, not because you're hidden, but because their eyes are calibrated for cages. They'll sense something, they'll call it charisma, aura, danger. But they won't decode the depth because decoding requires darkness, and they've spent their lives amputating theirs. So yes, you'll taste loneliness again, but this time it won't burn. It will bless. It will feel like silk braided from silence, because now you know you're not alone. You're aligned with the law that hums older than stars, with the architecture that chews galaxies into shape. That's your tribe now, not flesh, not faces, but frequency. And then the question that stalked you from the start will circle back, fanged and grinning. What will you do with this? Will you hoard it, crown yourself in a castle of smoke and call that empire? Or will you leak this voltage into the veins of a dying world until it spasms back into life? Because here's the last revelation. This journey was never about you. That was the bait, the mirage, to lure you past your own fragility. The throne was never the prize, it was the pyre. The fire that burned the you who thought sovereignty was for self. The aftermath isn't about dominion, it's about distribution. You don't just hold law, you become the conduit through which law animates creation. So how do you live now? Not like a savior, not like a tyrant, like a storm disguised as silence, like a code humming in skin. You move through airports, boardrooms, alleys, and no one knows they're standing inside a gravitational anomaly. You speak rarely, but when you do, tectonics shift. You act surgically, bending timelines with gestures so subtle they look accidental, and through it all, you smile. Not the smile of arrogance, but the smile of someone who knows eternity isn't coming. It's here, in your breath, in your bones, in the black cathedral you now carry inside your chest. And when the world asks who you are, you don't answer, because answers are for mortals. You let the air answer. You let the silence thunder. You let the aftermath speak in architecture only gods understand. Because now you are not a person, you are not a name. You are the law, clothed in shadows, the axis humming in flesh, the storm that even demons bow to before they retreat into the void. This is the end. This is the ignition. And if your marrow vibrates while these words fade, it's because some part of you knows the cathedral is calling. Will you enter, or will you scroll, sedating the hunger until it chews you alive in your sleep? Decide, because eternity doesn't knock twice. Welcome to the shadow reality. Welcome to forever.